Hi, Dragon. So we're continuing because I had to put it on pause and then it stopped recording. So this is the real part two. I labeled the other one part 1.5. Okay. So we're talking about some of the things that victims have to go through, and how they're walking wounded and things like that. So on slide 10, you'll see the main things that victims worry about, identity theft being a really big one. Burglarized, stolen cars being mugged, burglarized while you're at home, which is really scary. I'm surprised that that isn't bigger. Sexual assault, which I'm surprised is not higher up on the list, getting murdered, and then attacked while driving. Those are things that are really big right now. As an interesting aside, I had a student who was a freshman in victimology, and he did a research project on fear of crime. And he looked at what do college students fear. This was it was a research project, not a major field project, because back in the day we did research projects in victimology. But he found some really interesting findings, and that was really cool. Well, he ended up going for his master's degree here at Tiffin University, and he repeated his study to see what would have happened between freshman year and as a graduate student. And that was a very interesting study, and how times had changed in the 6 years he had been here. So fear of crime is a really popular thing that researchers look at in terms of victimology. So some of the things that Americans do to take precautions, okay? They avoid certain areas. Now, this could be anything from not buying a house or not renting in a particular area to I'm just not going to go there at any time for any reason, okay? Or they own a dog. Owning a dog is a really popular thing. Now, whether, like I said before, owning a dog doesn't mean that the dog's going to protect you, okay? A lot of times people die trying to protect their dogs. And so that's a little interesting thing. Buying a gun, which you shouldn't just buy a gun. If you're going to buy a gun, you should take the class to go along with it and then get the certification so that you know what you're doing in a bad situation. Installing a burglary alarm, or some people just install the signs that they're protected, and really there's no alarm there. Same thing with cameras as well. Carry pepper spray, again, you may have to make sure that you're in sync with the laws of your area, including when you talk about pepper spray and all the other types of things that are out there, and that you know how to use it, because someone can take that away and spray you as well. And carrying a gun and a knife, and again, you have to make sure that you're complying with the laws, because otherwise you could be charged if you use it inappropriately or don't have the things that you need to have, okay? So that was the first insult, and then we also have the second insult, and that is what happens when victims participate in the system. And again, this whole area, first, second, and third insult, that makes a great essay question for an exam. So here's a good summary of what happens. The witness will several times be ordered to appear at some designated place like a court. And they'll be sitting there waiting for long periods of time in, not often the best places. If you really want to get a taste of what that's like, not during COVID time, but go to municipal court on a Monday after a particularly, like in the summer or in the good weather. So see what happened over the weekend, because over the weekend they start to see the people in muni court for case disposition, all the arrests and everything. You'll have a parade of, prostitutes and people who are there for like rowdy parties and maybe attacks as a result of being drunken at parties. And it really is eye-opening. And if you're just a witness there, just waiting to testify or to be part of the process, you have to sit there with all of these people parading in and out, and it becomes really interesting. So it might be painful or anxiety-provoking, or maybe even a depressing experience. You may not know what's going on around you, so it could be really anxiety-provoking. So they may never be called on to testify, or the times may have changed or something like that. And you will miss hours from work. Maybe you told your employer that, the smart thing would be, I have to go the whole day, but sometimes they think, well, they told me it would only take an hour, and really it drags on to like 5 hours. And so that would result in the witness losing wages, which, or the victim losing wages, which, hello, they're the victim there. So, the treatment is really kind of bad. So just for participating in the whole system, you have issues there as well. So some of the things that the Milwaukee Victim Witness Project found were time loss, reduction in income, time waiting needlessly at the courthouse, problems getting to and from the courthouse. And usually the courthouses are in the center of the city, sometimes not in a really good area. Sometimes, you have to go through a lot of checkpoints, barriers, all that kind of stuff. It's not the most comfortable of places to wait. You're not going to be able to have a TV, sit down, have a meal. Sometimes like you go in at 9 and they don't, you can't go for lunch or something like that because they told you it was only going to take an hour, and then you're there for like 5 hours and you're starving. So just trying to do your civic duty as a citizen can sometimes be really unpleasant and costly in terms of a lot of ways that you didn't anticipate. So one of the bad parts about that is that people who are just trying to do the right thing, they end up paying for it in ways that they didn't anticipate, and it leaves a bad taste in their mouth, and they don't want to be part of the system where they were willing to help out before. Now it's just like, you know what, it's too costly and whatever. So if you have a bunch of people like that, then it becomes not good for the system as a whole, and unfortunately, that's what happens. So 6 out of every 10 property victimizations don't get reported to the police. Why? Well, they feel like nothing's going to happen. And why should they bother? Maybe they don't know what they lost. The police aren't doing what they think they should do. And again, this is the fault of TV. I remember I was living in an apartment, and a friend of mine who lived on the first floor was burglarized. And the offenders went right through. They had a big picture window. So they went right through, and they were taking stuff out of the picture window. And she said to the police, this is Toledo police, are they going to dust for fingerprints? Because she'd seen it on TV. And the police looked at her like, no, what kind of crime shows are you watching? And she lost quite a bit in terms of jewelry and things like that. But again, she didn't know what she did lose because she hadn't documented it all and kept a record of what was there and where it was and what was missing. So yeah, you have that thing that's there too. You also see a lot of times victims turning to people other than the police. There might be victim support groups and things like that because the police and this criminal justice system just doesn't have that sort of thing. And another big thing is that they don't feel like the courts will punish the offender, especially if the offender is, upper class or has some characteristic that they generally go unpunished. So we probably all have crimes that are that have gone unpunished that really, irritate us. So we'll talk about some of that when we meet in person, because those kinds of things, everybody feels that. And the additive effect of all that is victims not participating because they just don't, they think it's useless. And why should I when these sort of things go unpunished, And it really presents an unfair to the victims view of the criminal justice system as a whole. And like I said, if you have a bunch of people thinking that they're being treated badly and that nothing will ever change, then really it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, because nothing will ever change because no one's fighting the good fight. We all have to fight the good fight. Another thing is truth in sentencing. Truth in sentencing is for convicted felons. So if you get a 16-year term and then you bargain it down, or you get a different kind of charge, you bargain it down to a different charge, or you get out early, this is another thing that victims don't like. They want the offenders to go to be punished for the time that they're supposed to be punished. So the whole idea that some people are more equal than others, or some people will never get convicted of things that, like if you or I did, that immediately they would come after us. But if you're rich and famous, maybe you won't get anything. And that might be a fun discussion on a forum too, to see what that is. And sometimes it just changes the way you look at things, but we have to change that. And that's something I'm really a big advocate for. You should punish bad behavior, especially when that bad behavior is against the law, because if you don't punish it, they're just going to repeat it. And then we have a whole bunch of people who think that the rules don't apply to me, and then that's it. So there you go. So that's another thing that really, and on this slide, I think it's slide 14, you can see some examples of why people feel that. So that they also, bottom line, feel that, the system promises justice, but they don't make good on their promises. So that's a bad thing for us as a society as well. So according to one poll, 27%, only 27% of the people had confidence in the criminal justice system as a whole. That means that 3/4 of the people that are out there don't have confidence in the criminal justice system. So citizen reluctance to become involved in justice is at an all-time high, and that is really bad for the whole country. Okay, some citizens say that they would never do it again. Once they go through it, they'd never do it again. That's how bad the whole thing is. So that's the second insult. Okay, and they feel that the system as a whole is, apathetic to their plight. Okay, so they're making a rational decision not to become involved in a system where they feel that they're not getting any justice. Okay, so victims have both victimization because of what happened to them, because at the hands of their criminals, and then again by participating in a court system, a criminal justice system that does not help them, so they're doubly victimized. Okay, so they may not be able to avoid the first one, okay, but they're electing to avoid the second one. That is victimization at the hands of the system that's supposed to protect them. So if you add the financial costs on them and all the other ones that we talked about, you have what essentially amounts to a boycott of the criminal justice system, which is really, again, not productive for our country. And on slide 16, I have some of the truth in sentencing. It's a little graph here that shows here's the number of years that someone was sentenced to for the type of crime, and then the actual number of years that they served, and you can see that there's a discrepancy in there. Okay, there's a really big discrepancy, and again, that's the type of crime served. That doesn't take into account the other factors that we were just saying, like the wealth of the offender, maybe the racial makeup, maybe the geographical area they come from, like if they come from a really good neighborhood or they come from a poor neighborhood. That doesn't take any of that into account. So those types of things compound it as well. So we're going to stop here now, and we will continue next time on slide 17. So make sure you watch the videos. If you're watching the videos and you hear me say that, I'm going to put in a reminder as well. And look for forums and things like that, because, again, those things are very important to your grade and to attendance. So you have to answer the forum for today. I'll put it up there, and that will be the university's acknowledgement of attendance. Okay? All right. So I'll see you on Tuesday. It's a great day to be a dragon.